Hi everyone, my name is Punam Saxena with edu-Me. At edu-Me, we are fostering a stronger relationship and bridging the gap between parents and schools. We want parents to become partners in their children's education. So we do this by providing tools necessary for parents to feel confident about actually walking through those school doors, talking to the teachers and administrators, and also then talking to their children as well. And by doing so, we can raise the education bar. So at edu-Me, we provide, or I provide, personal parenting coaching opportunities to talk to our parents in small groups or even one-on-one. I'm an author in the making, and I'm also a podcast host of edu-Me. But today I'm here on a very different topic and talking about my journey about being brown in the South. It's an interesting journey that I've had, and I want to take some time to share it with you, but I need to give you some background before I'm able to actually delve into my actual story. So I want to read you a couple of paragraphs from my upcoming book that is yet to be published, hopefully by the end of the year, but it's out of the chapter called A Whole New World. So here we go. Everyone, and I mean everyone, is an immigrant in America. Unless you are a Native American, your ancestors all came from a different land. Some families have arrived recently, and others have been here for generations. But at the end of the day, we are all from somewhere else. The first settlers to America were the British immigrants. They came to an unknown land, had to figure out how to survive, build a community, create social networks, worry about food, clothing, and shelter, and find a livelihood for themselves and their families. These are not new issues for immigrants. This is just one example of millions who have settled in a country other than their own. So why did the settlers come here? Why did they choose to leave their comfort zone of their country to live in a place that is so vastly different? Well, they came here to the New World to begin a new world and a new life, to create what is called the American dream. Now, we all know this intellectually, but let me share with you a couple of stories that really have helped me understand the journey that immigrants face and the racism that they face as well. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story. My father came here in the early 60s to do his master's degree in Kentucky. So you can imagine in the 60s, we're talking about segregation, desegregation, we're talking about all these really life-altering issues for this country. And here he lands in the middle of the South in Kentucky. Thankfully, he was here for 2 years in Kentucky and did his master's degree, graduated, but really decided he wanted to do his PhD. So he picked the more southern University of Auburn. Now remember, Alabama was the hot spot in the 60s for desegregation. And here he was, a brown man, completely new to the country, sitting in the middle of Alabama trying to get his education. So he had a front row seat to see all that was happening in this country regarding racism. And in those days, there really were not a lot of Indians who had come to this country. So he was kind of an outsider at that moment. But he persevered because that's his nature. He brought my mom back from India in the late 60s, and promised her that he was going to finish his education, he was going to head back. He did not want to settle here. He wanted to head back to his hometown and be with his family. Now, who can blame him, right? But he's one of those that's not going to give in very easily. So once he finished his PhD, he had to do his postdoc. Well, of course, he chose another hotbed of racism where it was just as volatile, actually, which is Mississippi State. Now, remember, we're talking about the late 60s, so there's a lot going on in Mississippi during the late 60s. But then I was born, and now they were starting a family, and my dad had a job after his postdoc in the rural town of Griffin, Georgia, which is about 45 minutes south of Atlanta, and another very interesting place to be at this time in our history in America. Now, mind you, when he moved to Griffin, or when we moved to Griffin, we were the only non-white, non-black people in this community for the first 12 years we lived there. That meant that I was almost 14. I was almost 14 when the next Indian family moved into our community. So imagine being in a city where you're the only one that is like you. You look around, there's nobody that looks like you. Nobody that talks like you, no one who dresses like you, no one who speaks like you. So it was a really interesting place to grow up. We were kind of looked at as the outcast. So here we are. My mom is dressed in her Indian outfits. She wore the bindi that, Indians wear. She wore the red powder that you wear in your part to signify that you're married. So we didn't look like the norm in Griffin, Georgia in the 70s. We were definitely the outcast. We were so outcast that they did a front page article on us to help us feel like we were part of and maybe share our story so that others didn't look at us so strangely. But anyway, it was interesting. So that's the story of how we ended up in rural Georgia. And, I told you that my dad had promised my mom that he was going to take her back to her home. Well, we're sitting at 54 years that she's been in America, so I don't think she's going back. But, she keeps hoping. But now she's also made a home for herself here because her children are here, her grandchildren are here. So she's happy that there are people who can support her, which is what she ultimately missed when we were younger, needing to have her own support system. So a couple of interesting stories happened to me as I was growing up, and I want to share those with you because it kind of gives you an idea of the challenges that people who are immigrating to a country face. So let's take, for example, education, right? edu-Me is all about education, wanting to help parents. Well, it comes from a place of the challenges that my parents faced in education raising us. And here are two stories that I want to share with you that are really cemented in my upbringing that I think will maybe help others understand the plight that immigrants face. So one is called the test. In second grade, I was a straight A student. I was at the top of my class. I was doing great. I was reading off the chain, several grade levels above where I was. And that's all great, right? Because, everybody wants their children to be strong students. But here's what happened. My second grade teacher offered to have me tested for the gifted program, right? Extra enrichment activities, working with a like-minded peer group, all of those things that may catapult me further than where I was. So I was very excited about it. My parents were very excited about it. Now remember, we're talking about the 70s. We really didn't talk about cultural diversity then. We didn't talk about cultural biases in testing then. So I took this test and I didn't do well on it, or I didn't meet their criteria for doing well enough to move on. That crushed me. Absolutely devastated me to the point where I did not do well in school from that moment forward. I was an average student. I got by, didn't really care about school or reading or wanting to do well. None of those things were now on my radar of things to focus on. I graduated from high school. I went on to college. I was an average student in college. I graduated. It was fine. But I really didn't start to understand how powerful education was until I hit my graduate level schooling, which I honestly had never wanted to be in graduate school. I never wanted to be one of those people who had a master's degree. I thought, I'll get my bachelor's, I'll be fine. But I, strangely enough, signed up for classes at the graduate level, and I started to enjoy them. I started to see purpose. I started to see passion in what I wanted to do. So my trajectory started to change, and I went from being a very mediocre student to being an excellent student again. Now, some of you are thinking, okay, you let one test define you. I did. I let one test define me. Why? I'm not certain. I was 8. But I can tell you it crushed me enough that it lasted for 10 years, 12, 14 years. It lasted a really long time. So as we look at when we speak to others and how our words may or may not affect them, realize when you're speaking to someone who is from a different background, those words are taken in a different manner, in a different light. And we have to be very conscientious about that, because we could inadvertently change the trajectory of someone's life. We don't ever want to do that, and I know that we don't want to do that, but we aren't always aware that we're doing that. So I tell you that story, one, because it's very personal to me, but also because I'm vulnerable enough to say, I'm hoping it's going to help someone else. I know that I'm not the only one. So let's be very mindful of that. The second story I want to tell you is about the Bible. Now, mind you, as a reminder, I grew up in the South in the 70s and 80s, in the Bible Belt, thick in the Bible Belt here. So in 4th grade, some volunteers from some church, I'm not certain from which one, and I certainly don't want to share one piece of Christianity or one specific church because I don't want to call them out. I'm not certain. It was some church. Again, I was 10. So these volunteers come to the classroom, every classroom in the 4th grade across the county, and they give out these little pocket Bibles. They're bound. It's red leather with the gold edging around the Bible. It says the Bible on top. You know, Beautifully bound book. Honestly, stunning. So they're handing them out one day in 4th grade, and I decide that I am not going to take the book because that's not my religion. I am a Hindu. I grew up as a Hindu. I am a Hindu. And it kind of went against what I believed in, so I didn't feel like it was something that I should do. Felt like I was going to be a hypocrite by taking this holy book. Not that I didn't respect it, but I didn't feel compelled to conform. So I didn't take the book. I said, no, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm Hindu. Thank you so much. Well, lo and behold, we're sitting at the dinner table that night, and my parents, as they always did, said, so what did you do in school today? What happened? And I gave my normal, school was fine. I didn't do anything. It was boring. The normal 10-year-old answer, right? And my dad turns to me and goes, so I hear you didn't take the Bible when they were handing them out in school today. And I'm thinking, are you kidding? How did you know about that? Well, your teacher called and told me. All right. So here we go. So, the ultimate question is, so why didn't you take it? Well, we're Hindu and I didn't feel like I needed to, so I didn't. So my dad said something that's lasted forever in my mind. I mean, to this day, I remember this conversation. And he said something so powerful that it's changed the way I think about religion, actually. He said, no religion is bad. All religions are good. Every religion tells you to be a good person, to think about other people, and to do good in the world. So take the Bible, read it. There's nothing wrong in it. And I sat back and I thought, wow, here are two people who have uprooted their lives, moved to a totally different country, and decided that they were going to teach us worldly lessons as opposed to singular lessons. So the next day, I, of course, had to go get the Bible. Walked up in front of my entire class by myself, got the Bible, and sat back down. I have this Bible somewhere in my childhood memories box, but I kept it as a reminder of that incident because I learned so much from it. I learned that it is important to look at others from a different lens. So when I got to college, I actually took a Christianity and Hinduism class because I wanted to understand the differences between the two. I've read the Bible. I've read the Ramayana. I understand the stories that they're telling, and they're not different. The stories, the people in them, they may be different, but the ultimate stories, the ultimate goals, the ultimate lessons are all the same. So why are we not teaching those lessons? Why is one religion better than the other? It's not. And that's the beauty of being an immigrant. That's the beauty of assimilating in a country where you are not the same. You are absolutely different. And I know I told you I was going to tell you 2 stories, but I'm going to actually tell you 3. I never saw myself as a different person. I always knew that I breathed and ate and believed the same thing that everyone else did in my peer group, including when I had children and started volunteering in their schools. But one powerful day really made me realize how differently people look at those who are different, and they're judging by a character. I'm sorry, they're judging you by a characteristic and not your character. And that was September 12th, 2001, the day after 9/11. It was a horrifying day for this entire country. But the next day, I went into my children's school, and every single person in that school turned and looked at me. Now, mind you, I've been in the school for 3 or 4 years now. They all know me. I'm there every day. I'm volunteering. I'm as nice as I can possibly be, trying to build those relationships, break down those barriers. And September 12th, I walk in and everyone turns their head and looks at me. And instantly I knew that I was brown, that I was different, that I was now going to be looked at as a different person. All the things that I had done to break those barriers down were now gone. So the person that I was volunteering with, or for, mind you, she actually asked me, she goes, please tell me the difference between Hinduism and Islam. And I stepped back out of my own self and thought, wow, we really don't teach in this country about other religions and other factions of people and other groups of people in other countries. That's where we're faltering. We're not teaching these things that are important. One day of world history and world religions in your 5th grade civics class is not going to break down those barriers and help everyone feel like they're one. So we as a society are not doing a good job with that. We're not helping our students of different backgrounds assimilate. So think about that. If we feel like that, how do others feel? How do people who are born and raised here like me feel? How do my children feel who have known no other home than America? So we're finding ourselves in a pivotal place in our nation's history where we really need to start focusing on educating ourselves and empowering ourselves to be less judgmental on a characteristic and really focus on the character and content of the person. So I also wanted to tell you what happened after September 12th, 2001. I feel like I became the educator, the person people came to want to understand the differences. And while I'm doing this, in my peer group, I am keenly aware that my 4 children are being raised in a society that is judging them on their color. I have 2 girls, I have 2 boys. They're all in their 20s now. I worry every single day for my boys, not because of the way they talk or the way they dress, but because of something they can't control, and that's the color of their skin. So one of the biggest challenges that we faced is telling our boys that they can't have a beard, a long beard. They can have scruff, but people judge you, unfortunately, by the size of your beard, because the people who did that horrific thing on September 11th had longer beards. Again, it's a characteristic. So I've had to adjust my parenting to accommodate our society so that my kids can assimilate and be less judged by someone they might meet. So we're talking about racism, we're talking about assimilating, how we've had to assimilate. One thing that I forgot to tell you is that Hindi is my first language. I did not learn English until I was in school. And so when I'm speaking, I oftentimes speak in my head in Hindi and I have to translate it in English. And when I need to speak in Hindi, it happens the opposite. I have to process in English and then say it in Hindi. So I've had to learn to assimilate. So when I speak, I may speak in a pausing manner because I'm having to translate in my head. Okay, when we're talking to immigrants, people who are not native to this country, oftentimes they're doing the same thing. And those pauses can be seen as not smart, not intellectual, not able to speak fluently or cohesively. That's not the case at all. They're wanting to make sure that they're speaking correctly and in the correct language with the correct tense. Those are very small things that immigrants face that we often judge people on. So when you meet an immigrant, remember that. Keep that in mind because it's a really important lesson to understand. So, you know, this whole new wave of microaggressions has come out, right? That's the new term, the hot term that we're using to talk about how we are imposing our views on someone else. So I want to give you a couple of examples of microaggression that I faced. So my name is Punam. Punam means full moon. Every 28 days in the lunar calendar, a full moon appears, correct? Well, in India, we worship the full moon. People fast and pray to the full moon. Every 28 days, I happen to be born on a full moon, which is why my parents named me Punam. You can't imagine how difficult that has become of a name that I literally have to break it down for people. Now, I've been called Punam, Punam, Punam. I even got tuna one time. That was really interesting. You know, that's a microaggression. It's a very small thing that you may feel like, oh, well, I just didn't know, I'm so sorry. But think about it. If I mispronounce the name Sally to Sally, or Sully, or Salai, or Sally, you know, it's a microaggression. It's not intentional, I'm hoping, but it's maybe not as respectful. It's a very small thing, but I've made it a point to make sure I ask the person how to say their name, because I want to make sure that that I'm saying it correctly, because I want to be respectful of that. Now, I know a lot of times that it is unintentional, and I want to give everyone the benefit of the doubt because that's my nature. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't bother me in some manner, some deep down issue that I carry. So keep that in mind as you're speaking to people. The other thing is, you know, people say, oh, you must make great curry. I love curry. Curry's very different in India. Curry is not what we think of in America. So as much as I love that you love curry, you're probably not eating the curry that we talk about in India. It's a very specific process to make curry. And again, it's not a big thing. But when you start putting those microaggressions together, it does become a big thing. So if you love Indian food, please, please, please help educate yourself on the food, because it's important, if you want to connect with someone, to be able to talk to them about something and be educated on it. Or ask, hey, what is curry in India? What does that mean? How is it made? Because that's another way to help the person feel a part of and not so isolated. Another interesting thing that happens in India, which you may or may not know, is that we do not wear shoes in our home. Actually, let me rephrase that. We don't wear outside shoes in our home. So when you come into the house, you actually have house slippers that you wear, because your home is a temple, and we don't wear shoes in our temples. So we actually have house slippers. No one wears shoes in our home. So be cognizant of the cultural, I don't even know the word, the culture of the person that you're visiting, because it's important to respect them. When I walk into your house, I have learned to respect what happens in your home. If you pray before you eat, then I will bow my head respectfully. I may not pray with you, but I won't be disrespectful. So as we are learning about racism and cultural biases and cultures, remember that we all face them. We all talk about them. And quite frankly, we all do them. Whether you're brown or a person of color or you're white or whatever you are, we all do it. The lesson here is to learn what you're doing, and can you do it better? And can you educate yourself? Because education and being open-minded is what changes it. I grew up in the South, and I struggled to overcome some of those biases that were placed upon me. I'm going to leave you with one issue that happened to me that is very personal, that's very, to this day, very hurtful. I was in 5th grade, and of course that's when you're starting to have crushes and you're starting to like people, and you're looking at people who are very cute, and you're hoping that you are cute enough for them to like you back. So I had this crush on this guy, and he was very nice, very sweet. And a couple of weeks after us talking, he said, I'm actually going to like so-and-so and ask them to go out with me, because you're really not that attractive. You're brown, you've got this long hair. Yeah, it's not for me. That's crushing to a child. I remember going home and just sobbing because I was brown and I had long black hair and I was different. And he chose someone who was more like him. That's hard. Now, mind you, since then, I'm going to turn it into a positive here. I've checked him out on Facebook, and whew, so glad that didn't happen. But when you're that age, or any age, it's crushing to be told that, to have been told that you're not good enough. So it's hard. It's hard at every age. So I want to share with you the one piece of advice that I've hopefully strung along as a theme in this presentation, and that is judge someone on their character, not a characteristic. Be open. Learn. Be wanting to be vulnerable. It's a good thing. And it really is more helpful to the person you're talking to. So I want to thank you so much for this opportunity, Amy and Nancy, for this amazing chance for me to share my story. Being brown in the South was tough. I still live in the South. I've raised my kids in the South. But we can make positives by helping others. So Amy and Nancy, my hat's off to you for this project, for bringing voices to the table that can empower others. We're going to make a difference, and I'm so grateful that you've given me this honor. Thank you so much. Everyone, take care. Bye-bye.